Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us at Carla 2020. Very exciting new conference. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Wendy Mitchell. I am one of the conference moderators and program advisors. And today you're listening to our roundtable about risk, financing, and diversity. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everybody some of the ethos behind what we're achieving with Carla, and just to have a pledge that I do not and will not condone any forms of discrimination by myself or perpetrated by others on the basis of ethnicity, religion, geographical origin, skin color, religious beliefs, sexuality, gender identity, socioeconomic class, disability, or age. I equally declare that I do not and will not tolerate sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, ableism, fascism, and any other isms. Don't bring them to Carla. So, sorry I had to read from my paper, but you understand I wanted to get that right. I do think today's roundtable, there's a lot of roundtables happening at Carla, but I think this one is so important. We're looking at equality and inequality in the world of film throughout the Carla program. And we have to look at money and finance as part of that. So I'm really glad we've got these experts here today. You know, we've got so many people saying they want change, or, you know, putting up these huge corporations, putting up Black Lives Matter statements on Twitter. Well, are they backing Black creative talents in the same way they back white ones? You know, I think that's something we have to look at. It's got to be more than talk. We need to look at where the money is flowing. You know, anecdotally, I think we hear that women and people of color are seen as riskier propositions for financiers, but, you know, do we have any evidence of that? In fact, the evidence I've heard is that women tend to come in on budget or under budget more than men. You know, we've got evidence that audiences for new voices are underserved, and there's a huge demand to see more content that appeals to wider audiences, not whiter, you noticed, wider. So this is not a new topic to talk about, but I'm glad we're doing it today. But 2 years ago, I know the Swedish Film Institute put out their gender report that year, was called The Money Issue. And it looked at, even though they were backing 50% split of male and female directors, the men were getting the bigger budgets. And they wanted to look at that more. So I think we might get a little bit into that today. We've got some really amazing panelists. What we're going to do is start with Effie Brown, who is the CEO of Gamechanger Films. She is based in Los Angeles and is a veteran producer and somewhat new in the CEO role at Gamechanger, which is amazing outfit. Yeah. So welcome, Effie. What we're going to do is talk to you just for a little bit first, and then introduce the wider panel to pick up on some of these.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. This is great. And I'm really excited for this roundtable. I'm very impressed with the fellow panelists. So I'm excited to get into it. So let's chat.
Let's chat. You know, just in your personal career, maybe as an independent producer, maybe now at Gamechanger, do you hear people either out loud or sort of implying that women or people of color are riskier investments? Is that something that happened in the past? Is that still here?
You know what's so interesting? I'm going to say, you know, I always joke, but it's not a joke because it's the truth. I've been Black and a woman all my life, right? You know, and I'm like, for 48 years. And I've been blessed to be always to find a job like from out of college in this business. So I've come up as a PA to like a coordinator, to a UPM, to a line producer, to a producer, to like I've gone the gamut. And I have to tell you, it has, if we didn't have, and I'd love to hear what the other panelists say, if we didn't have the civil unrest that we've had, you know, this year, I highly doubt we would be having this conversation, because I've always heard of being a woman, a person, and a woman, a person of color, that we were riskier. That like we don't it's all fallacy, it's all bullshit. We don't travel, really? I don't know if, you know, like our films don't travel, but like our music and our culture does. So you're like, but our films don't? Whatever. Total lie. That we don't show up, you know, to the audience to support our films and television. Also a big lie, we over-index, right? And, you know, like all of this is just lies, you know, it's, but the business, in my opinion, has been set, the foundation of this business has been set upon these lies, if that makes sense. And so, and weirdly enough, we just keep perpetrating them and perpetrating until someone's like, stop it, right? You know, like, and then you have to go and start, you know, disproving that these things aren't true. So I think people wouldn't have the, I don't want to say the gall right now in this date, like today, you know, to say you guys are risking whatever, because now, you know, and I would love to hear what Diana, you know, later on has to say, because now like all of a sudden they're like, Effie, girl, Effie, how you doing, Effie? And I'm like, because I'm Black and a woman, I'm a twofer, right? You know what I mean? And everyone being like, we need diversity, and like, oh, she's Black and a woman, right? But I'm like, I've been Black and a woman this entire time, and you guys weren't really paying attention, nor did you. This outpouring of support wasn't necessarily there. I'm not bitter about it, but I do like to call a thing by its name instead of having revisionist history, or to be like, well, I'm doing good now. Like, don't, you know, like, why do you keep bringing up the past? We're doing good now. And to be like, we have to take everything on its whole. Yeah. You know, we have to see, anyway, the whole, and I'm sorry, this is a conversation, not me getting on a soapbox.
No, we wanted to offer you a bit of a soapbox, so you're half up there. I like it.
I'm like calling up, right?
Yeah. No, I think what you said is very true, that a lot of it is BS. You know, do you think there is enough evidence now that Black Panther did really well? You know, that's not the only, that's the only Black Marvel film, I guess.
I know, right? Now they're going to change it. But like, that's untrue. I mean, there's actual documentation of, you know, our movies, actually, they do really well overseas. You know, like Will Smith is a superstar, but every time we get a win, it's an anomaly, right? It's like, oh, that's because of so-and-so, or, oh, that's because of that. We never allowed, and that's a problem that I find that a lot of women, not just people of color, but women and people of color also have, is we always have to constantly prove ourselves like it's the first time. You know, I literally, like my movies, and it's not a lot, but my movies have made over $100 million for other people, not myself, right? So, and I've always done things that are about the underrepresented community. You know, period. Like, I've never really done anything that was like not about, you know, that wasn't about women, people of color, LGBTQ, or people with disabilities. I'm always working in that range. But it's just interesting, you know, to realize, like, every time I have a success, or to be like, no, we won Sundance. No, went into a TV show. No, we did. And you're constantly having to prove yourself, which then is a wee bit of a double-edged sword, especially if you're a woman, because then you're being, you know, you're doing a humble brag on yourself, or you're being too ambitious, or you're being not aggressive, but like you're touting like, no, really, I've done this and this and this. It's like easy. And you're like, but how else what do I do? No, you know, and then you just like, you can't like really, you know, you can't win for losing, as they say.
Yeah, that is sort of, yeah, it's a catch-22 right there, because, you know, look at the egos in Hollywood bragging about their box office and this and that. And if you're a woman, you can't just plainly state your accomplishments or what your films have done at the box office, which is factual. That's not bragging.
Yeah, but it's always because of someone else. Or because, oh, that was because of this, or that was because of that. And here's the thing, I don't necessarily want to be like negative Nelly, you know? I mean, I do feel like we got to call a thing by it is, and I don't want us to become complacent or, you know, or apathetic of like, oh, we've already done it. Like, the studios have put the little black box for Black Lives Matter. We have the reframe, we have this, like, we're good now, right? And to be like, no, we're not good. We shouldn't be happy. And I keep saying this, we shouldn't be like high-fiving ourselves for shit we should have already had. Like, we can't be like, oh my God, now it's like, we can't be like, well, just because you're now doing what was supposed to be done years ago doesn't make it all like go away, because we have those years of systemic damage that has been done. And we have to do, you know, to unlearn, you know, bias. And, you know, nothing's worse. I mean, like, you know, what's worse in this industry, in my opinion, I'd be curious to hear what other people have to say. You know, it's when nobody has the gall to come out and be a straight up racist or misogynist. Nobody does that because no, like that's not cool. That's not okay. But what is, like, there's a friend of mine named Heather Ray, who's a wonderful native, you know, indigenous producer. Like, she's badass. And she said, and I say it all the time, like my grandmother said, beware of liberals who smile, for they have very sharp teeth. And that is something that made me, that has really stuck with me, because it's, in my experience, a lot of times it's those very well-meaning people that don't see themselves this way that are actually the ones who could be doing the biggest damage. And when you want to talk to them about that or confront, like, hey, that's low-key racist, or like, that's, it's offensive to them. You know what I mean? Because they don't see themselves that way, but trying to find a space to have that conversation or dialogue, that's key. And that's what I'm very hopeful for right now, that we have the space for, and that's what we're building.
Great. I should mention to people watching this that Heather is talking at Carla.
Oh, yes, she's amazing. She's everything.
So go seek out whatever she has to say in those sort of video archives. But just before we open it up, we could talk to you for hours, but can you tell us a little bit about, because I know Gamechangers work a little bit from the past, but I think it's been sort of revamped, re-energized with you at the helm. Can you just sort of, for people who don't know what Gamechanger is all about, tell us what you're doing?
Sure. So Gamechanger was a film fund for female filmmakers. Say that 5 times fast. So it was started in 2013. It was run by a badass woman named Minette Louie, who did an excellent job. They made movies like The Invitation by Karan Kusama, and they did Jennifer Fox's The Tale. They did really great work. They spent that money down. And then the founders, or the people who came up, who wanted, were the backers of this, were like, well, what's the next phase or the iteration of Gamechanger? And we actually met up, and I was like, look, I've been trying to raise a fund or get backing for my company. And we'll go into this, I'm sure, when we all talk, because it's about access to resources, right? And an opportunity. And I said, look, this is what I think we should do if we were to come on, is that we should actually stop siloing ourselves off to just women, because that's I'm an army brat, right? So I know that, like, for my grandfather and my father, it's like the easiest way to take down a people is to start dividing them up, right? Because if they all got together as a whole, it's game over. So I was like, so women, people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities, we should be doing all of their work in front of and behind the camera, period. And what we're doing is that we're doing things that are more leaning towards genre, thriller, action, sci-fi, horror. But what's also great, I always laugh, and they're like, well, what kind of movies do you want to do? And I'm like, let me also tell you what we're not doing, which is, I'm not doing Black poverty porn. I'm not doing white savior movies. I'm not doing the rom-com where the girl becomes whole when she gets the guy. I'm not doing, like, we're all these things, like, we're just like, we're a no-ism company. But what's great about us, and I also said for Gamechanger, we need to go to that next level, is that we need to have our investor pool reflect the people that we're serving, period. We need to have women, people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities actually funding these projects and these movies, because then otherwise we're always asking for someone else to believe in our story. So if we don't believe in us, then why should anybody else believe in us? So that's also something that we built into Gamechanger. So before it was just a film fund, an equity film fund for women. Now we are a financing, development, and production company. So that's what we've moved into, and we're also doing episodic. So we're looking, that was long-winded, but that's what we're doing.
That is great. We're going to come back to a lot more of that, but I think it's time to unveil the other celebrity squares.
Yes, and who's calling? Let's do it.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We have Claudia Blumhueber, who is the CEO and managing partner at Silver Reel Partners, which is a big funder that works around the world and headquartered in Zurich, Switzerland. We have Diana Williams, who is EVP of content at Madison Wells Media, based in Los Angeles as well. And we have Lizzie Francke, who is Senior Development and Production Executive at the British Film Institute, BFI, so can speak a little bit from our public funding voice. We have Doris Eikhof, who is a professor at the University of Glasgow, who does a lot of her research about gender in the workplace. And last but not least, we have Phil Hunt, who is the founder of Bohemia Media and also still the MD of Headgear Films. Is that right, Phil? Yes. Yes, he's on mute still. But yes, great.
Yes, absolutely.
So yeah, people working at various parts of the chain that I think we're going to be really interesting to hear from. And if I might, Doris, to sort of set the scene, I'm wondering if you know, what evidence do we have about films being greenlit at certain budgets for women, for creatives of color? You know, do you have any research that says that women are risky? I think the research will say they're not, but do you have any research about this issue?
We do. First of all, let me say thank you very much for having me on the panel. It's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So we need to sort of unpack a bit what we do and don't have the research about. We have statistical evidence about who makes films and how well they do. And as Effie already sort of alluded to, there's some myth busting to be done there. So we can obviously see a massive underrepresentation of women filmmakers or of Black ethnic minority filmmakers, absolutely. We can see that. We can also, we've got statistics that show us that, again, as Effie already said, women films in particular do not do less well than films directed by men. Quite the opposite. We have actually got evidence by Skadi Lois and Elizabeth Prummer, which I think is going to be presented elsewhere at Carla, that women are much more efficient with the money, and that their films tend to be shown at, if you prorata it, at more festivals. So it's not just about the money, it's also about the creative and artistic acclaim. So women films don't do less well than men films. So that's the first one. We don't have those statistics, as far as I'm aware of, for Black people, or people of color in terms of the outcomes yet. We also don't have them for sexual orientation or for disabled filmmakers. So there's gaps there. What we don't really have at the moment is evidence of the decision-making processes that lead to those outcomes. And that's where we really need to dig into. We've started doing that together with a colleague in Australia, Dr. Amanda Coles. We've actually looked at research that started to work with decision makers. And there we definitely find that women and people of color are seen as riskier propositions. And that's super important to note. The point is the perception bit. What Effie alluded to as the stories that the industry tells itself. And that came out very stark in our study. People, and those were, funnily enough, that most of the decision makers in that study were actually women and a couple of women of color. And even they subscribed to those stories. And that's important for, I'm sure we'll come to that later, for unraveling the whole thing about what can we do. Spoiler alert, just shove a few women and women of color in there, ain't gonna fix it.
Thank you, Doris. That's a great scene setting. Diana Williams, I would love to come to you to hear about your experience in these decision-making processes, because from what I think I know about you, you don't think it's, you know, a handful of closeted racists. You think it's a very systemic issue that we're looking at. But correct me, you know, what's been your personal experience of going in these rooms trying to get funding, or now being a funder?
Well, what's been, also thank you for having me on this panel. This is a great group of people. So what's been interesting is that it is absolutely this circular system that goes on. So in terms of hiring, in terms of the gatekeepers who are looking at who to put onto a film or television or anything, you know, it's a crowded marketplace right now. So much noise out there in terms of trying to get the audience. And this is, you know, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, current pandemic, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of noise out there. And so you need names. That's what marketing needs. And so you go after the names. But to become a name, you need to get the gig. But to get the gig, you have to be on the list. And to get on the list, you have to be a name. It is bananas, the way the system works. And so every year, usually a white male is plucked from obscurity, from Sundance, and then handed let's say gifted a tentpole movie.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen to women. It doesn't happen to people of color. And so, therefore, in defense of some of the gatekeepers, when they have to look at the bench is all the same 8 guys, because that's who has been gifted the tentpole bench. That's who's been gifted the sequels or gifted anything that the industry is like, well, we know how to make money here. This makes sense to us. Don't make us have to think about anything else. And, you know, I think it just continues on and on and on. There's no reason to change the system. There's no reason for them. It's going fine. It's going along. That's why, like, you know, when DVDs went away, everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to die. And it's just like, well, but you could have seen that coming. I mean, like, literally every sign was there. It's an industry that prefers, it's like they see the iceberg, and instead of saying, hey, why don't we turn it this way? But they're like, oh, but you know, it's going to cost this. I have to get people on overtime. It's just not worth it. They're instead figuring out and calculating the damage as opposed to avoiding the iceberg. And I think what's been going on in terms of women and women of color and men of color in terms of becoming on the list, instead they do want to say the word risky. Or when they actually do hire one, it has become like, well, we're taking a chance. Like, no, your job is to get innovation in there, to get new voices in there, to get the audience. Your actual job is to make cash, get the audience. Get the audience, you make the cash. That's what your job is. Your job is to take your biases away and figure out how you're going to be making innovative, entertaining, engaging entertainment for an audience to enjoy. And yet biases are in conflict with that. So I think we do have to look at the system as opposed to, as you know, when you and I have talked about, as opposed to blaming the person that takes the job. The person that takes the job, no one's going to turn down a job. That literally makes no sense. But the system that says only these people can be offered the job, that's the issue. And at each point, you can understand the challenge and the pain point of each person. I understand the challenge and pain point of the representatives, who, like, their bonuses and their salaries are tied to getting their clients into gigs. And then they're thinking like, well, okay, well, that studio exec only wants to see someone who has done tentpole features, so I can't give them a name of someone who hasn't. I've got to only put these people on. And then the studio exec is like, well, I'll lose my job if I don't get that person on that the eventual green light person will allow onto this film, because 9 figures is a lot of money to give to anyone. And it doesn't matter if someone's already done a tentpole, they can also blow that. So at each point, they want to be sure and sure and sure. And so that is a pain point at each point of the system. And people will then always go back to their comfort zone, which is, well, this white guy did this, so we're fine. So that's what we have to kind of bust into.
Yeah, how do we bust into that, though? Because that is so systemic, and it's hard. Like you said, you know, they're just going to see an iceberg and probably hit it. How do we, like, break up the iceberg and everybody has a chance to? My metaphors are very mixed.
I think
how do we change that system?
To Effie's point, we have the ability to do so now. And the thing that is, I mean, the pandemic is terrible. What's been going on in the island is terrible. It's you know, pretty much 2020 is just all terrible. But we're all on a pause also. And I'll use a gaming term. In gaming, I'm walking around, I get blasted with photons and I'm dead. But then I come back to life. That's called a respawn. Why would I then walk into the exact same place where I got killed? So we have an opportunity right now in this industry to respawn. We have an opportunity to not make the same mistakes. And we also have data to back that up. We are seeing films created by and shepherded by women that are blowing up, whether we're talking on Netflix with Gina Price-Winslet did with Old Guard. There are absolute examples. There are examples that were in theater prior to the pandemic, and there are examples that are going on now with streaming. And there's examples across the board, you know, in terms of all types of entertainment. So now that we have data, which we had before, but let's just, okay, we're moving on. We have the data. It is time to change it up. We have a system that is fundamentally broken right now because of the pause that we are in. We have all been smacked with photons, and we now have respawned, and so we're not going to do the same thing again. So let's figure it out. Let's get new voices into the system. And then if you want to take a chance on a new filmmaker, then you surround them with those people who know what they're doing. You get that strong producer in there who can make sure they can talk to students. You get that strong line producer in there who's watching that money. You get that strong assistant director who is making sure that that director is getting their voice out there on the set. Whatever it is, I mean, this is what happens. I mean, there was this announcement of another guy getting gifted a big tentpole, and he's surrounded by all these great technicians and people, these craftspeople. And so if he screws up, it's on him because everybody else around him is fantastic. Well, why can't we do the same for women? Why can't we do the same for people of color? So again, this is actually fixable and it's not expensive. So I can, it's always a big argument. I want to spend a lot of money. This is actually fixable without additional money, without another new diversity program in which you're just going to talk, and nothing happens. So, I just think that we need to stop making these excuses. And one of the big excuses is every time a film that is female-centric, whether the lead is female or the story is female or the director is female, it's always the success is excused away. It was based on a book. It comes from this. That actress has this. No, it's because the audience came. There's an audience that is dying for this type of entertainment. They want this story. So you shouldn't excuse away success. You should be replicating success. And that's not what happens with women or people of color.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like what Effie was saying. It's always, oh, well, this one is an anomaly. It's a one-off success. Lizzie, I see you shaking your head quite a lot in agreement. So I'd love to come to you next, just to hear, some of your personal thoughts about what Diana was saying and how, does it feel different in Europe? Obviously, you work at a public funder that does have, diversity initiatives in place and requirements across your film funding,
Absolutely. And I think it's what to me is really interesting is that the industry, the private equity, the studios, everyone's catching up. I mean, to me, the heart of public funding was about creating change. And I think that, for myself and my colleagues, working at the Film Council and then the BFI, it was about what we do to change things. But often you'd come up against a wall that you'd be behind a filmmaker, you'd be supporting them and you'd be supporting the development, you get to production. At the time we couldn't fully fund projects because that's not the nature of public funding. And then we sort of get a sort of a brick wall where the filmmaker would get money from us, but they were having to go around cap in hand to others, and it would sort of, do everyone's head in. So obviously there would be moments where we could fully fund and we'd have to kind of craft the rules, but we could, again, because of public money rules, we could only sort of cap at a certain point. So I remember, Destiny Carragher's film Gone Too Far, we broke the rules so we could fully finance that one because everyone was saying, well, no, there's no audience, blah, 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 all that. The film got made, it was received really well. Destiny and Bola's careers, thrived. Destiny did a lot of TV after that. She's actually coming back to develop another film project with us, but she was doing so brilliantly in TV for a while. So it just again shows that the rest of the world is catching up with the sort of initiatives of public funding, which at the heart of it is, it is about inclusivity and changing things. And I feel that what we've been doing is being in this big ship, and we've been trying to sort of change things, and then suddenly there's just this desire from everyone, and it is that the broadcasters, everyone has to be in line. It has to be the sales agents, it has to be the distributors. And I'm talking about independent cinema in the UK, but I do see certainly in the last 5-6 years, a huge change. The fact is, Phil, who's been a brilliant champion of diverse projects as a private equity person, and it's now now putting his what's the word, wares out in terms of being able to sort of say this is what we're doing, and I think that's fantastic. I think distribution is catching up, all those things that we are catching up. But I love what Diana was saying about where we're at the moment, this pause and for really granular thinking. And I think that's, again, where the thinking really needs to happen in terms of career progression. It's not just about the directors, the writers, the producers. Fantastic, a lot of good work, but it has to be everything in the whole value chain. Seeing diversity in the exhibition sector, diversity in distribution sector, And maybe this is a good pause to look at it. I know that my colleagues in physical production are really looking about how we can really change from, from the journey of a runner to becoming to be, all those sort of aspects of it. But we are in a pause, and we need to respond, not react.
Yeah, Lizzie, I've talked to some friends who are public funders in other countries, I think in Denmark, for example, and they say, we're not getting sort of riskier propositions coming across our desk. We want to support some different new voices, and they're not applying, or they're not applying with ambitious enough films. I mean, is it somehow that do filmmakers and producers also sort of self-censor, like, oh, the BFI would never fund my British version of Get Out, so I'm not going to apply with it there? Do you think that filmmakers know that people want to champion?
Yeah, we do a lot of, obviously with emerging voices, we do a lot of work through our network to really show how welcoming we can be. I mean, actually, we do have a British Get Out, so there you go. But I think that the filmmakers that we're working with are taking creative risks and incredibly exciting things. And obviously, the pause we're in saddens me too, because there's a couple of projects that we're about to get, go into production, and they're on pause. But actually, I think the filmmaking teams will say that in terms of being a first feature filmmaker, they're strengthening their armory during the pause in terms of being able to fine-tune scripts. But I do think we are getting exciting projects. We can do more work. Of course, there's no complacency is allowed in anything. It's about constantly sort of just fine-tuning and pushing. But I think the messaging is that we're a welcome home. We can't commission. We are absolutely, we have to wait for people to apply to us.
You have to respond to what
we have to respond. But I think that by dint of the range of work that we make, and the way we can work with, making the BFI a home for international projects, whether it's through distribution or the festivals or other aspects of our BFI work, showing like we're definitely a home for ambitious things that are doing things differently. And again, we should be so lucky if we got a British Get Out, because it's like, Jordan Peele's a genius, but I also can see some filmmakers bubbling away who are our own Jordan Peele's. And I'd even say that Destiny, given a chance, will be a Jordan Peele, because she loves horror. We talk about horror, and though her first film was a sweet comedy, I think I'd love to see her do a horror film. Well, she's developing one with us at the moment. So yes.
Great, thank you. I'd love to bring in Phil now, because Phil, through Headgear, you have financed literally hundreds of great independent films that we've all seen at festivals for a year. But recently you've started a new company called Bohemia. And it looks like a real passion project for you to champion maybe some different voices. Can you tell us a little bit about what you want to do with Bohemia?
Yeah, well, so firstly, Bohemia is, not my brainchild, but my partner, Lucy Fenton's brainchild. And actually, it's not a distribution company, it's a diversity brand that has many other aspects to it. So we have the Apple Tree Bar in Clerkenwell. So we bought this building, which is how we started it off, which was to be the home of all diversity, to find a place where it's not it's not just one aspect of LGBTQ or marginalized voices or cultural diversity or disability. It's a place where whoever you are, you can come and allies of, with the idea of like, if we can bring people from all different walks of life around a table and listen to each other's stories and where we come from and accept each other, eventually get to world peace. So that was kind of like, the unachievable goal of Bohemia. And so Lucy kind of came up with this idea about 7-8 years ago, shortly after we met, and we were kind of hanging out with a group of kind of burners, an LGBTQ crowd, and it taught to me very much because, like, you know, I was fortunate enough to have two elder sisters who taught me that women are far more, you know, far better at kind of running the world than men, basically, which, you know, I still, you know, I really believe that. You know, I don't think there'd be as much kind of enmity or war without if it was really run by women rather than men. And I kind of grew up in the punk scene, and I had like people like the Clash, like, you know, I used to, you know a lot, you know, still kind of hang out with a couple of members of them, and people like Don Letts, who's the Dread, who brought reggae into punk. And so they were like, you know, very much a voice of my youth. So I've kind of lived my life through diversity, even though I'm a cis white het guy, you know. So Bohemia was, the whole concept was, let's buy a building that we own and control, and let's form other aspects to it. So it was like, so then last year we formed Bohemia Egomania, which is talent management and mentorship. And then we have Bohemia Utopia, where we raise money for charities. Both of those are done free. We don't take any money for management or sourcing money for charities. And then it was obvious, like, well, what else can we do? Okay, so stories, the whole thing about diversity is through storytelling. I'm in the film business, so that's an easy one. Let's just start Bohemia Media for film, TV, and performing arts. And I realized, you know, well, hey, we are a public facing company. You know, we have thousands of people that walk through our door, love it. So then I thought, well, look, there's all these, you know, now getting to the nub of it is like, there's all these films that distributors don't pick up because they're a bit scared of, you know, making change. And so why don't I do that? Why don't I make it my job to pick up small, in market insignificant films and then distribute them to our niche audience of diversity, of sexual diversity and cultural diversity, and make that our job for Bohemia. And, you know, and I think, you know, I just want to now flip to Headgear. What does Headgear do? Headgear basically finances movies, and it doesn't choose the movies based so much on what it is and what the content is, but it's a very commercial company where it's like, we don't want to lose money. We don't want to bet everything on, you know, we see projects which is like, yeah, this should be made and it's an amazing project and it's got a great voice and we think that, you know, maybe this could change the world. But we're not going to do it with my Headgear hat on if I look at this and I'm like, we're probably going to lose a lot of money on it. So that's not a decision that I would accept to board for Headgear. But for Bohemia, you know, I would. Not that I'm like gonna, you know, like lose lots of money, but to distribute it, then yes, absolutely. So
do you see a way for those two to hopefully work more together in the future, though? I mean, I understand Headgear is a sort of, you know, last in, first out kind of financier, from what I understand, and you know, you can't lose money there. Yeah. Can you work with more inclusive voices in Headgear in a way that's still financially viable?
So if you just think about markets, where the market is, so Headgear bases its decisions on where the market is right now, not where it hopes to be. So right now we're all thinking on the diversity front, we're all thinking, you know what, like 2 years ago rather, we were going like, you know, black female films, forget it, ain't ever gonna do anything, no way. Whereas now we're like seeing a light. So we're going like, okay, maybe, you know, maybe this could actually work. So 2 years ago, even if I wanted to with Headgear, it's like, nope, sorry, not going to do that. So you've got what's, you know, it's about economic forecasting. It's like based on evaluating everything that we have, all the information that we have right now, where is it going to be at some point in the future based on today's information, not tomorrow's information, but today's. So Headgear will always operate in that world, whereas Bohemia can operate in the other world. So will they come together? I mean, you know, both, you know, how I see it is, you know, they're both my companies, and then I've got, you know, other film companies as well, sales company, and even another distribution company. So for me, it's about like, the whole point of like creating all these companies is so I can service everything, so that Headgear is money, which gives me the ability to actually put my own money into not even just Bohemia Media, but Bohemia Club Limited, which is the holding company for everything that I'm doing in diversity, you know.
Okay, thanks. Can you give us an example of a film or two that Bohemia has been working with?
Yeah, so everything from like, you know, on a higher end, so Halle Berry's Bruised, to Sweetheart, which is BFI, BBC, Film London, microwave movie, to on the distribution front of Bohemia, we just released Clemency about 2-3 weeks ago in the BFI. You know, we got an audience award from the BFI, which is fantastic, it's been a much bigger success, believe it or not, than I ever imagined. I can't believe it. That rarely happens. And it looks like we're gonna do a BAFTA campaign for Clemency. I'm just picking up a whole load of other films for Clemency to distribute, and you know, everything from, you know, bigger. I mean, I'm saying Clemency is a big film. It's not. It's like 2.5 million. But I mean, we're doing like films of 100,000, you know, so the whole gamut. For me, for Bohemia distribution, it's like, does it tick the box of diversity? Great, we'll do it. No matter what, we're just going to do it. If I lose money, I lose money. You know, it's not going to be that much money that I'll lose anyway. But, you know, for me, it's like diversity, great. We'll do UK and North American distribution.
Great. I know everybody wants to jump in here, but I'm going to come to Claudia finally. Claudia, thanks for joining us. And I'm just curious, you know, I'm sure you get a lot of projects crossing your desk at Silver Reel for potential investment. And, you know, do you feel like you're getting inclusive proposals coming through, looking for finance? And is that a consideration when you decide what projects to join? You know, would you love to back more women and you're not seeing enough of them, or what's the mix like that comes to you?
Yeah, we would love to see more women, and we're actually, you know, we've always been a big champion, and you know, obviously also, you know, engaged on films that are championing equality, both race and gender. You know, we were obviously involved in Loving at a time when a lot of people wouldn't back Ruth Negga. You know, we got The Wife made, which, you know, didn't get made for a long time because people in the studio system said, oh, this is, you know, homophobic. You can never actually do this movie. So you know, I believe that all of us being participants in the entertainment industry are agents of change. We are, all of us, in a really powerful position because we can create awareness with what we do. And that comes with a major responsibility. And one thing that people need to understand in our societies is that there are different ways to measure return. And so far, what people are doing is they measure return simply on a monetary basis, which is wrong if you look at the costs for society. So what needs to be done is you can measure return. Obviously, you do not want to lose money if people are trusting you with the money. But there is a way to measure return, not only in monetary terms. There is other currency. Change is a currency. Positive impact is a currency. And it's way overdue by our societies that we also integrate these in measuring return. there is a big movement to do that, to actually not measure, because it's just very short-sighted for all of us who are living there. Creating awareness is a currency, and people need to be able, also from a technical point of view, to integrate that and to show that and say, yeah, right, you know, maybe on this one you'll make your money back and X, but here you're making your money back and maybe a little return on monetary terms, but you also create change, and that you can value as X, Y, Z. And there's actually ways to measure that. So we've always, from a Silverhill point of view, looked at that way. You know, we've always believed that being in a position that we are in comes with a major responsibility. We've never believed in investments simply making the highest monetary return, especially if you are in the entertainment industry. And weirdly enough, you know, some of the films that we have done that all go into these themes of, you know, gender, race, equality, or, you know, social justice and pace, or, you know, I'm kind of like quoting the, you know, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. They've actually been also the most successful ones, you know, something that we've done against torture, like, you know, The Well Woman, or The Wife, you know, being on gender equality, Loving, you know, it's been also really impactful. So, you know, I think definitely, I think anybody who is in a position that we are in, having that kind of responsibility as change makers, as creating awareness, can not only look at the monetary return, they also need to look at the social and the impact return that they're creating.
Great, thank you. Effie, I'm curious, at Gamechanger, are you considering positive impact? You know, is that good enough for your investors, or do they need cash back?
Here's the thing, and I'll say I'm a 51% owner of Gamechanger, so that was also a new thing. So and I'm going to come at that question a little differently. Where I absolutely believe is that there's different ways, and Claudia, I love that you said like of different ways of measuring return. I absolutely agree with that. I'm going to be more focused, or I feel that we need, as a Black female CEO, I don't know how many of us there are. I don't know how many of us there are that are actually signing checks. So I don't have and I don't want to say luxury. I don't have the luxury of I'm going to say, and I'd love if other people could pop in just in case I'm, you know, making it more conversational, in case I'm saying this wrong. But I feel that like right now I need to show that we are not charity, that women, people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities, we are actually good business. And I feel that if I can show, and when I show, and I have shown in the past, that we can do product and get out there, and we can actually, you know, have a bit more leverage where we have our own resources, our own equity to start financing our own things, instead of going to other people who don't look like us, who don't have the same experiences that we do, to sort of be like, okay, so this is what it's like to be a woman. Okay, and now a Black woman. Okay, and this is why this story is great. It's really difficult to do. So anyway, so for myself, just going back to that, it is really important. Like that's I'll call it, that's the sprinkle or the gravy on the sauce. Do you know what I mean? Sorry, no, go Claudia, like of having
Can I jump in here?
Yeah.
I want to be a bit controversial on that one. I believe good business is sustainable business on a lot of different ways. And I believe good business does not mean it means sustainable. It means getting your money back and a healthy return, but it doesn't mean to maximize profits by all means. And good business, at least for me, and I think that's really important for business, means to also include the other subject matters, you know, other things that are important. And I'm not talking charity. I'm talking about integrating values in your business proposition.
I believe you. And what I think is so lovely, and this is a conversation, and I mean absolutely no disrespect, but that is a privileged sort of position that you're able to take. Now, I'm just going to be real with you. Like, I'm just saying, I don't have, as a Black woman, that's in this. I don't know, somebody else talk. Ask, like, I don't know how many Black female CEOs that are able to write a check for a film fund. There are. I don't
think there's a lot of females anyway,
no.
period, who can write a check for a film.
High five with you. I believe that. But I'm just saying, I'm in America, right? You know what I mean? We're being murdered. Like, there's all sorts of like inequality that's happening. I have to, and I feel, and this is my thing where, and in no way do I want to insinuate that you were saying that we were charity, because you weren't saying that. I'm talking about when I'm going in for financing or measuring things that people are like, oh, that's like sort of a write-off. And I'm trying to show that that we are actually good business. I would love to be able to maximize my profits and, in a way that still has integrity and authenticity. I absolutely agree with you with that. We just never get the opportunity at the gate. We just never get that. And now that I have it, I need to make sure that I can keep it going so that when maybe there's another company and we can all grow together. So in answering that question, I can't go to my financiers who are like, I don't know if this will work because there's not a lot to pattern off of it. I don't know. I can't say like, but you know what we did? People really like, you know what I mean? I can't show that because they'll be like, well, then that's like a charity, that's like a nonprofit. Where I want to show, look, this is good business. So not just bet on Gamechanger, or if I want to grow more, I'm going to say, let's go bet on this other company. Let's go to that and let's start building. That's where I'm coming from. And anyway, but I like controversy. I like it. Go ahead. Let's keep talking. I know.
Doris, did you want to jump in there?
Yes, I do, because I just wanted to draw attention to why we're having that conversation in the first place, which is because the minority have been holding the positions of power in which they can then apply one logic or the other. The reason that Effie has to go out and explain that what she wants to do is good business is because there are people out there who don't realize that although they are the ones holding the purse strings, what they think is the audience is actually minority. If you are middle-aged, middle-class, men without a disability, and maybe live in an urban location, you are not the majority on the planet. Newsflash. But that's the idea that's behind the decision-making. And one thing that came out from our study was this sentence where somebody said, it's about becoming comfortable with a risk that isn't a risk. And I was really remembered of that when Diana spoke. Diana used the word becoming comfortable. And it is very much about that. We also described how people are thinking about, Diana, losing their jobs if they make a certain decision. And that's very much what came out for us. It was about people thinking, if I make a certain decision, how is that going to reflect on my reputation, on my job? Can I risk giving this project to somebody who I'm not familiar with? And that's, for instance, where all the networking thing comes in as well. The conversation about networking is at the moment is about you've got to be in it to be given the opportunity. We need to understand that people have to be in networks to be perceived as not risky, because we perceive as risky, and again, that's going back to what Diana and Effie were saying, we perceive as risky what we're not familiar with. If we start to be familiar with things, if we start to learn about things that we didn't know about before, we start to perceive them as less risky, and then people start to make different decisions. So I think that's worth bearing in mind. Why are we having this conversation in the first place? Why does Phil feel that he has to separate his activity into two different businesses? In an ideal world, I'd quite like Phil not to need to do that.
Yeah, I'd actually like to say something to that too, because I think people would have stopped. So something Phil said about 2 years ago, we've never done a Black female film. And I think people would be like, oh, up in arms, they would just stop listening. But if you think about it, part of the issue there, as also to what Doris is saying, is that the data has been segmented and segregated out. And so Effie and I, and a lot of other people know that Black female films make a bunch of cash. And because we know about Set It Off, the Set It Off was also excused as being like, well, if it's an action film, it's got guns, it's basically male, And so each time a film that has centered on the Black female experience, whether it's done by a male or female director, but centered on the Black female experience, they make cash, but because it's been segmented out away and just said like, well, it's just for the Black audience, who cares? Then therefore, you know, Phil, who's in Europe, can look at those numbers and he's like, well, the numbers aren't there. I don't see it. It's not on the charts, blah, blah, blah. I can't back that up. And so he's making a business decision for his company, and that makes sense. But what we're saying is that the data needs to stop being segmented out. It needs to be kind of more like, let's look at, is there an audience that can be served? Do we have the material to serve them? And what's going to be my cost to get them that material? It's simple math that we have clouded over with our biases. And to the point of, you know, the fact that the execs are homogenous. And it's not even just homogenous in terms of just either gender or ethnicity, but it's also in thought. And that's a big thing. And so if they all went to Harvard, or if they all went to Eton, or whatever it is, they all think the same. And we're all guilty of it. Like, you know, there's a group of Black female execs that, you know, Effie and I are very close to. We all kind of are all the same. We all have like extra education. We all most of us, I think, Effie came up via production. We all also work closely with directors and with writers. So we're all kind of the same in terms of thought. And so then when someone else comes in who maybe only came up the digital route and only knows YouTube and influencers, we're like, what are you talking about? So we all have biases. Let's call it out. But our point is that we need to work past our biases and find the audience, make the cash.
Great. Phil, would you like to jump in there?
Yeah, I you know, look, as you're talking, Diana and Doris, I kind of feel that, you know, it's been just, you know, because of the world, patriarchy, etc. But I do feel that we're now rapidly, hopefully, with the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, it's kind of increased the rate of change, you know, and I think we're definitely on the right path. And what we need is just for all of us lot, and you know, us, everyone here, but you know, the wider film community, to keep moving, keep pushing it, and we'll get there. We'll get to a point, I think, that hopefully they're not separate conversations. You know, that's, I mean, unless Trump and all his cousins get into power in every country, you know, then we're all fucked. But I have a lot of hope, actually. I have a lot of hope. I've seen the rate of change. Like when Lucy came up with this idea, when we were hanging out in 2013, 14, you know, with this very diverse group of people, you know, lots of trans people, non-binary people. There was almost okay, can you
The future. Yes.
There's a future. She tells me what to do quite a lot, don't you? Sorry, I lost my thread. I think, you know, I think there's sorry, so back then, within, what I'm trying to say is within 6 years we've gone from like there's no column inches about non-binary and trans from that point of view of the alternative sexuality to it's everywhere. And I kind of feel that I'm just seeing this massive rate of change. So I'm hopeful.
Okay. I'm well aware we've run over time. That's the danger of getting such smart people together to talk about something really important. I feel like we're just getting started, but we're going to have to wrap up soon. Diana's not even going to let me wrap up. Look.
No, I'm not. So one thing I do want to bring up, and we've all kind of talked about it, you know, Lizzie brought it up and Claudia, that the submissions are not there. You can only give money to and program and distribute what's there. And I think that there is a little bit in terms of women and people of color that we're waiting for permission. And that's not how it should work. You gotta go out there and get it. If you think your rep is putting you up for that job, I'll guarantee they are not. So make sure they are, or you go after that job. Or like, you know, the example I can give is that when back in 2013, when it was announced that I was going over to Lucasfilm to be part of the story group, my phone blew up with people who wanted to work with me. All of a sudden, I was the shiny red truck. But I will say 95% of the people who texted me, who sought me out, who figured out my email, everything out, were male. And women did not. And I was shocked and appalled by that. And then going over to MWM, announced that I am running a division, that I am putting things together. Again, my phone blew up with males and not women. And I'm like, that's not great. Like, so why did they feel like it was? Because they have been trained that like, you want to go after and get it. And women are like, well, I need to get this training, I need to get this, I need to get that. And each time they're trying to pull up their evaluation via like, oh, look at my resume. And sometimes it's like, and this is a hard lesson I've had to learn, is that sometimes it's not about like your body of work sometimes actually doesn't speak for yourself. You have to speak for yourself. So when you hear about the announcement, you better attack. You better be up your agent's butt saying, why am I not being put on that list? Or you need to figure out a way to get to that person too, but don't sit back. And so I do think that women especially need to stop doing that. You speak the best for yourself.
Yeah, and I do think there have been some talks during Carla that are going to very specifically be about not waiting for permission, not waiting to get the call. You make the call and try to get it, you know. Effie, did you have something?
Yeah,
I was just looking at the dog. Sorry. That was I'm a dog person. I was like, oh, okay, sorry, Doris.
I don't have a dog. I have an elephant. It's the elephant in the room. And we really, really need to at least mention it, because I am, from the previous research that we have, I am super concerned about the impact of the global pandemic on people's ability to come forward. There is every indication that the people who have found it difficult to access opportunity, to be seen and to be part of what we call the screen industries, will suffer detrimentally. I will just give one very brief example, which is, yes, there were rescue funds available, but the anecdote that I've heard is that the people particularly struggling to actually access them in the UK were Black filmmakers who could simply not write the application because they were attending 3 to 4 funerals a week. So, you know, even when the opportunity is there, people may be able to use it. So we can't wait for people to come forward. There's got to be something else happening. If we wait for that, if we wait for somebody to lean in, this pandemic is going to throw us back even more than I think it already will.
I would echo Doris's point that the pandemic is, though we're in this pause, which we hope we can move forward, there's also the fear that we will move backwards, and particularly for those who have felt marginalized, that they could just be pushed back into the margins. So again, for us, in terms of public funding, even more reason that we go the extra 100 miles, 1,000 miles to ensure and make people feel that there's a space for funding. And of course, again, in every aspect, whether how we think about application processes, all the sort of things that we have to do to be as inclusive as possible. But I absolutely echo that as a big red flag. We're also, as Phil's alluded to, you know, we're in a politically very complex time at the moment in terms of the rollback and you know, the right to having such have prominence. So even more reason to be vigilant and on guard and proactive. To me, it's essential. You know, we can never take it for granted in terms of anyone's work, and just again constantly push.
May I jump in for a second? I mean, I think I want to say something positive here, because I think really, I mean, we founded Silverreel over 10 years ago, and you know, we did, for instance, we once did a big action film with a studio in the US, and I remember I'm going, you know, in LA into this room, and there were like, whatever, 15 men around the table. I was the only woman, and I was looking at directors, and it was like 3 pages of directors that were presented, and then there was not a single female director. And the question was, and I said, like, how is it even possible that there is not like a single female director on this list? This is just, there must be. And the answer was, oh, you know, female directors can't direct action. So that's only 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, all right? Since then, we've seen major change, really major change. And then, I mean, obviously everybody's pushing tremendously, but the change goes to the point there where like when we were doing, like we just been doing one of the major television series, together with, the BBC and Fremantle, we were really going through heaps and heaps and heaps to make sure that we're going to get a female director on this. The same with female writers, the same with Black directors. I mean, from our point of view, we really, really look that we can, and it's not perceived more risky anymore. I would say, at least not from our perspective. And, from our perspective, and when I say our right now, it means like, people who also represent, money. And I think there has been a real change. And we do so much development. I don't see that also in the pandemic. I totally see, Doris and Lizzie, what you're saying, but in terms of the way that people are viewing at least the talent on the directing side or on the writing side, I do believe there has been a major change, both on female as well as Black, and so diverse. Let me put it like that. At least that's what I can say. I have seen. I don't say it's equal at all yet, and I think there needs to be a lot more done. But I do think that there's change. But there was one thing, and then I'm stopping.
No, we love you here.
I think one thing is also that I think we need to make sure, what I've tried to say before, it's not only getting, equality in race and gender, it's also really looking at the content, right? So it makes me really sad if Effie says, okay, I'm now a game changer. I'm looking at doing Black horror because that makes the most money for my people. And that's how I perceived I'm being successful. And I can't do a loving because probably my return is not going to be like 2 times X. It's maybe only, the horror is going to make like maybe 5 or 10 times X my investment. Loving's maybe only going to make 1.5 times X. So in order to be perceived as a good businesswoman, which is really important for me right now, I can't do something where that's really can change the awareness of people. I do the,
Okay.
And that's really, that for me, I really believe we need to look at the content as well, not only at the people who make it.
I hear you, and I'm so sorry, Wendy, I need to address this. I feel like we're at a political debate, but I am going to address that.
For it.
I want to be very clear. I have never said that I'm only going to do horror, and I want to actually look back at the films that I have made from real women, and I said that I've made over $100 million for other people. So like Real Women Have Curves, Dear White People, Rocket Science, Stranger Inside, But I'm a Cheerleader. Like these are all, you know what I mean? These are the types of films that I'm going to continue to do and to continue to champion because they are good business. What I do, so by no means, like there's no, and I know you don't mean this, but I will have to address it, like what you were saying, Claudia, in the streets of Los Angeles in the States, we'd be like, are you calling me a sellout? Like, if someone would be like, then I'm going to go do, no, I know you weren't, girl. I know you weren't, but I'm going to be like, I'm just going to clarify where I'm like, look, I have been ride or die in this industry from the very beginning of the movies that I've done, from But I'm a Cheerleader to all the way to doing Lee Daniels Star. Like we have always been about this and to continue to do so. What I do want to make sure, and I think that this is the other elephant in the room, everyone loves to talk about directors and there's writers and they're all of that good stuff. But my thing is, who has the purse strings? Who are the people that can write that check and to make that bet? That's us. Those are the people who are either like call them the gatekeepers or the people who are the financiers. That is why to say we need to have our investor pool be as diverse as the people that we're serving, period. Like that's what we need to do. And there will be more people, because I will say this, I think there might be, if there's a representation at these places that are giving funds, that are people that look like them, that, you know what I mean, that come from the same experience as them, I bet you that people will show up. All I know is that like, and I understand everyone has a different experience, but as soon as like, hey, Effie Brown, these are the movies that I've been doing, I now can write checks. I will tell you, I have over-indexed in Black and brown people of color, LGBTQ, and people with disabilities, because they're like, oh, you know what? I got the shorthand, she understands, and it's a direct thing. I think a lot of it, when we talk about getting intimidated or not showing up, it's because it's exhausting. And that's what I think people really have to understand. It's exhausting to constantly have to explain, nope, it's really hard. Like, people are super racist. I know it's hard. Like, a lot of times people go into the room and you're the only woman. Imagine being the only Black woman that goes in because we're like, you guys are denigrated. We're fucking further behind, right? You know what I mean? It's just because of it, like, just to be real about it. Like, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. There's not that many, you know, and going in and being like the work that we're able to do. So I wanted to close, you know, so for Gamechanger, I want to make movies that are culturally building bridges and that are also good business. Like, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I don't, and I will not be told from other people, and you're not saying this, Claudia, this is not you at all, but I won't be told that our movies don't make money. I don't. I'm just tired of seeing the same, like, I'm just tired. There's different types of movies that we can make. And that's it. High five. All right, I'm out. Drop the mic.
High five, everybody. We are going to drop that mic, I'm afraid. I mean, we could go on for hours or days. Thank you so much. I did want to sort of try to end on, maybe we can't end on a neatly tied up in a bow, pretty picture, but I think we've heard a few things about what people can do. And, you know, Diana was saying, you know, don't wait for permission, make that phone call. Claudia is saying, question that list. And if you're the person making the list, make the list better, you know. I had an example. I did a panel a few years ago with a Swedish actor named Alexander Karim. And he was saying, like, on Netflix, he does not watch, or on any TV, he does not watch a show that's all white. If there's no Black or brown person, that doesn't represent the kind of work he wants to watch. So you can kind of vote with your clicks. You vote with what you buy. If you rent Clemency online, that helps Bohemia take a chance on another. So our clicks, our views make a difference. Does anybody else have a closing thing, a tip for something in the industry we can do, or something as consumers we can do? Any thoughts like that?
So, Lizzie.
Well, I want to quickly say that actually, to me, the most exciting thing about the last few years is diversity in genre. And someone who loves genre films, and those are public, there's huge audiences, whether it's for Watchmen on TV or Black Panther or Get Out, that to me is, you know, where political ideas make a difference in a very exciting way. But I'd also say we as audience members, I always say to young women, when I'm talking to young women, you have to go and see every film directed by a woman. That's your responsibility. Don't moan to me about not becoming a filmmaker. It's like being a responsible audience member, about really engaging and be excited by the diversity of cinema and showing it. These days, unfortunately, just pressing a button, because it's harder to walk into a cinema at the moment. But I also just say, you know, when I have various quotes by my iPads when I'm thinking every day, and I have one which is from the great Audre Lorde, and saying revolution it's not a one-time event. We just have to constantly revalue everything, and that to me that's my gold star.
I want to say that, like, high five, Lizzie, on the genre thing, because, like, I'm building IP, I'm building franchise, Star Wars geek, the whole shebang, and we as gatekeepers need to not be okay with the lists that are coming in. Like, I have never been okay with the list. I've been tired of getting a list of those same 8 names. I'm done with it. I mean, like, yes, I'm saying that definitely creators need to step up, but also do not send me a list with no women name on. Do not send me a list with no people of color. Like, that's reprehensible. So I'm calling out the list, and it doesn't make me so popular sometimes, but, like, and you know, and it's hard because, like, my job is to, like, get this thing done. And if I know, like, that studio exec wants this certain type of animation writer, then should I be doing that, or should I be saying, like, nope, we got to put more names on the list? It cannot just be about that, because we're also not growing the industry. If we keep going back to the same well of the same 10 guys here, 15 guys here, 8 guys here, we're not growing our well. So it is on us to really, that's systemically what we as gatekeepers can start to do. Systemically, that's where we can start to change it and make things easier for the, you know, for that talent that is coming up.
Yeah, sorry, can I
and
say
also,
one
where's
last
our
thing?
train from?
Wendy, I think one thing that Diana just said is so important, and I've seen that myself couple of times is that albeit, you know, with Black Lives Matter, albeit with the Me Too movement, I think we're very often put in a position, being part of minorities. You know, I've been in the position as a female producer that, you know, people come and then we get pressured a lot about taking a lower fee, about our credits being pushed back, and we've actually really been pressured. And I have examples where I put that all in emails and in Excel, and where we then told, you can't rock the boat right now, you can't say anything because that might derail the film and the film might not happen, and that's your responsibility. And I've been there with other females, and I haven't rocked the boat. And that's one thing that I've really been like, I've sworn, you know, whenever I see something, whenever it happens to me or somebody else, just because people are saying, oh, you're gonna hurt your career, or you're never gonna do another this or that, speak out. Yeah. Speak out and help other people to speak out, and don't be shy and don't be afraid. That is something that's still so prevalent in this industry, that, you know, you're then afraid because that might hurt, you know, and you're put under pressure. And I think that is one thing we all need to do. If we can see anybody, or, you know, doing that network that I think somebody said, I think Lizzie or Doris said, we need to stand up. We really need to stand up if we something like that happening. And it happens still all the time.
Yeah, that's the problem with being the only one in the room. That's the issue of the execs and the gatekeepers. When you are the only one in the room, you lose your voice. And so we've got to change the suites.
Doris, did you have any other sort of action idea?
For me, the onus is on the decision makers, and I'm very allergic against this idea, to this idea of sort of outsourcing to diversity to the people who represent what we think is a minority group. So anybody who is in a position to make decisions and who happens to be white, a man, maybe in the Northern Hemisphere, maybe not disabled, either educate yourself on who other people are and what their stories are and how to work with them, or move over.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we've also seen, you know, having a diversity executive tucked in a corner somewhere, you know, inclusion has to be part of everything, not...
No, but I do also think there is a tendency at the moment to bring in people who are underrepresented and who we think are in minority positions into every committee now, so that they can do the diversity work. That can't work. As Effie said, that's exhausting, that's going to burn people out. That's not how, and that's not how, if we do want to move over to a better normal rather than the old normal, that can be our game plan. That's just not sustainable.
And Phil, did you have any, as our male ally, any final tip?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, my call and request to everyone is, let's try and get Bohemia to fail as soon as possible. What I mean by that is we're all about diversity, right? So we're about putting, you know, like what Diana was saying, it's like, you know, why are there two measurements, you know? So, you know, my request to everyone is like, let's all try and get Bohemia to fail as quickly as possible, so that there's no longer like this pot of like, you know, diversity and everything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, other than that, just to echo what everyone said, you know, I mean, there's been some really good comments, and it is about, you know, it is about the old cis white het guy, you know, people like me, and Hollywood, you know, changing. Sorry, I hate Hollywood. It's just, you know, a den of iniquity. Of win-lose, like, you know, fuck everyone apart from themselves. And now, you know, like the agents are kind of like, oh, hey, let's jump on the bandwagon, and like, you know, oh, great, like, you know, hey, trans people, like, we didn't care about them before, but now we can make some money out of them. It's, you know, anyway, yeah. Those are my passing comments.
Okay, thank you. Effie, any final thought from you?
I think everybody said it best. All I would do is echo, and just to be like, I'm so happy to be here. And it's these types of conversations that will make change. Like, that's what I'm talking about. And I'm glad to be a part of it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to wrap up even before Diana can tell me I can't. I'm going to say thank you so much to our panelists. You know, this is not always easy stuff to talk about, and we certainly haven't fixed everything today, but I think we've had a very lively discussion. I really value everybody's input here. So thank you so much. You know, stay tuned at Carla for more discussions like this, although this will probably be the best one
ever.
Right? But really, thank you everybody for your time, for your insight. Let's go change the world, everybody. Thanks for your good thoughts and good luck. Stay well in the pandemic and stay fighting the good fight for great films.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. See you later.
See you later.
Bye.